Now, for the longest time, a lot of fans around the world have been wondering exactly how J.J. Abrams is going to end the Skywalker saga ever since he stepped on board for this project over a year ago when he began writing the script of Star Wars Episode 9. This is Mike Zero. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, one thing I will say that I'm truly excited about when it comes to this movie is exactly how JJ is going to insert all of the different material that connects to not only the original trilogy, but also the prequels, Star Wars Rebels, the EU/Legends material, as well as books, novels, and comics. Like I say, this movie, being Episode 9, is going to be a film that's going to gravitate towards all Star Wars fans around the world who are pretty much, involved in different mediums of the franchise. Now, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about this film when it comes to some of the set leaks, the set designs, the concept art, and storyboard descriptions, etc. One of which has all to do with major hints and or indicators of Ezra Bridger and Ahsoka Tano being in Star Wars Episode 9. Specifically, a description of both Rey, Maz Kanata, with Finn and Poe firing blasters at stormtroopers, while they take cover behind rubble as Rey protects them on a battlefield. It's described that in the distance on the battlefield are two older characters, wielding lightsabers that are both colored green and blue. It's described that the two characters are codenamed EB and AT, one of which appears to be an older female Togruta, and the other is a man around Luke's age, with long black wavy hair, blocking blaster fire with the green lightsaber. The next goes over both characters back to back, wielding the sabers surrounded by troopers, where eventually they both use the Force push technique. Lastly involves Rey pushing and rushing into the battlefield, which is inspired by the beach of Normandy and infiltrating the trenches, taking down stormtroopers with her lightsaber. So I really want to go over a couple of parts about this and why it sounds like a chaotic scene to me that's going to really have a lot of sacrifices and losses. So I don't know if you guys knew, but Episode 9 is really going to have a lot of different inspirational pieces of World War II and, of course, old Western movies as well. So when it comes to the third act of the film, it will be heavily inspired by World War II, which I honestly think is great. Very chaotic, and I gotta say, this whole entire scene seems quite insane to say the least. Now, the one thing that I do want to go over are the characters codenamed EB and AT. Now, without a doubt, this is of course a way of abbreviating Ahsoka Tano and Ezra Bridger. Now, the thing here is this: we do know that Ezra Bridger is in or around the same exact age of Luke Skywalker, and if I'm not mistaken, they may have been born maybe just a couple of days or maybe even a year apart. I'm not quite sure, but they are very close together in age, and that's one thing that really does interest me, is how these two characters have both green and blue lightsabers fighting on the battlefield. So it seems as though that's one thing that J.J. Abrams wants to incorporate into this movie, is of course multiple lightsabers being in this film, kind of giving you that prequel vibe, right? If you look at the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy so far, the whole entire concept of lightsabers are basically extinct. So when we go into Episode 9 now, taking place roughly 1 year after the events of Episode 8, now we're going to see all of these different Force users, and it does make sense as to why Ezra Bridger and Ahsoka Tano would be involved in this film in their older years. They did this with Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, with of course Saw Gerrera from the Clone Wars. They gave us an older version and live-action version of that character and what it would be like in his mature years. So now going into Episode 9, it seems as though that JJ wants to do the same exact thing. Now, the whole entire description of this EB character having the long black wavy hair, and of course, being around the same age of course, Luke Skywalker and holding a green lightsaber, I think it just screams Ezra Bridger. It has to be. There's a lot of hints and or indicators in here, especially with the other character, a female Togruta that is in her older years, wielding a blue lightsaber on the battlefield next to this EB character. Now, what are the odds, right? We have a Togruta and a human male, both side by side, fighting against the First Order, surrounded by stormtroopers. It sounds so much like Ahsoka Tano and Ezra Bridger working together as a team, like how we saw in Star Wars Rebels. So with that being said, additionally, we do have Rey rushing into the battle from this description and going into the battlefield and taking over the trenches. Again, this is a whole entire scene based on, of course, the Normandy beach from World War II. A very inspirational piece, that J.J. Abrams is trying to insert into this movie. So with that being said, I know that there's a lot of controversy about JJ, wanting to somehow incorporate Star Wars Rebels in here, either in the form of planets or characters or whatever have you, right? I know that a lot of people out there are not so, excited about that, but as for me, as a fan of Star Wars Rebels, I think that if they really want to pull this off correctly in Episode 9, they got to keep these characters as, cameos, not major characters, because we do know that this movie is going to have a lot going for it already as it is. So with that being said, guys, what do you think about all this below in the comments? And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon.